This is our reading group video of Charlotte's Web. Enjoy! Yeah.
Chapter 1, Before Breakfast. Fern saw her dad going outside with an axe. Her mom told her that some piglets were born and one of them was small, so he was going to kill the pig. Fern thought it was unfair that he was going to get killed just because he was small, so he let her keep the piglet. Fern named the piglet Wilbur. Fern thought Wilbur was perfect. Chapter 2, Wilbur. Fern loved Wilbur and she loved everything about him. Fern's dad thought that Wilbur was old enough to be sold, so Fern went across the street and sold Wilbur. But Fern is going to see Wilbur every day. Chapter 3, Escape. Fern went to see Wilbur every day at the neighbor's farm. Wilbur wanted to be at Fern's house. When Fern left, Wilbur busted the gate and escaped. Everyone tried to get him. Finally, Wilbur came back to the farm. Chapter 4, Loneliness. Wilbur was so lonely at the farm. He asked everyone if they wanted to play and they said no. Wilbur lay down and he heard a voice that said, "I will be your friend." Wilbur couldn't see where the voice was coming from. The voice said that he would know who was talking to him in the morning.
Chapter 5, Charlotte. Wilbur wanted a friend at the farm, but he couldn't find anybody to be friends with. Wilbur searched and searched until one night he found a new friend to play with, but he couldn't see his new friend. Chapter 6, Summer Days. It was a nice, peaceful summer day. The goose's eggs were all about to hatch. The eggs finally hatched. One didn't hatch. The goose let Templeton keep the egg. Chapter 7, Bad News. Wilbur heard the bad news that he would die, but he wanted to live. Charlotte told him she'd save him of perishing. Chapter 8, A Talk at Home. Fern wanted to tell her parents about the animals and how they talked, but she needed to go to Sunday school. She went to get ready.
Chapter 9, Wilbur's Boast. First, Wilbur tried to spin a web. Then he asked Templeton to borrow a piece of string so he could tie it on his tail, and then he climbed to the top of a haystack and jumped off, resulting in where he just got hurt. Chapter 10, The Explosion. At the beginning of the chapter, Avery tried to capture Charlotte, but he fell and lost his balance. And Wilbur's throat tilted and blew up the rotten egg that belonged to Templeton. Then she started to work. Then, when Avery left, Charlotte started to work on something in her web after the accident.
Chapter 11, The Miracle. One morning when Larry goes to feed Wilbur, he sees the word "some pig" on Charlotte's web. He stares at it for a few minutes and then gets Mr. Zuckerman, who stares at it. Then he goes to get Mrs. Zuckerman. The three of them stare at it for hours. Finally, Mr. Zuckerman talks to the minister, who tells him to not tell anyone, and he would call if he figured out why and how it happened.
Chapter 12, A Meeting. In the barn cellar, they were trying to decide a word that they could use to write on the web to get attention on Wilbur. And then the goose decided on the word "terrific" to write on the web. Then they told Templeton to fetch a newspaper clipping for a backup word in case "terrific" got a little old. Chapter 13, Good Progress. First they wrote "terrific" on Charlotte's web. Then Charlotte made Templeton fetch another backup word. Then Charlotte told Wilbur about her aunt. And the story was about how her aunt caught a fish.
Chapter 14, Dr. Dorn. One morning, Fern started telling Charlotte stories. Mrs. Arable got worried and called Dr. Dorn. Later that day, Mrs. Arable talked with Dr. Dorn, but he says that she's fine. Chapter 15, The Crickets. As summer comes to its end, things goes normal in the barn. Charlotte's plan attracts visitors from all over. Wilbur suddenly asks Charlotte if she could go to the fair with them. At first, she thinks she can't. harder. Chapter 16. Off to the fair. On the day of the fair, Wilbur gets a buttermilk bath from Mrs. Zuckerman. Charlotte and Templeton get into the crate that would hold Wilbur after the bath. Wilbur gets in, they head off to the fair.
Chapter 17. Uncle. Charlotte thought it was good that Wilbur couldn't see what she saw because there was a huge pig in the next pen. Wilbur started getting worried because tears came to his eyes. Charlotte started feeling bad and might not be able to help Wilbur live. Wilbur got really worried because people kept ignoring him and gave Uncle compliments. Chapter 18. The Cool of the Evening. Charlotte asked Templeton to get her a paper clipping with a good word on it. Templeton got mad because he had to do a lot of favors. He brought Charlotte a paper clipping that said humble. Wilbur asked Charlotte to sing him a song, but she wasn't feeling well. Charlotte was keeping a surprise for Wilbur until morning time. Chapter 19. The Egg Sack. As soon as Wilbur woke up, Charlotte told him about her egg sack. Templeton noticed that Uncle got a blue ribbon, which made Wilbur sad and lowered his spirits. Suddenly, everyone was happy again because the loudspeaker said Wilbur was going to get a special award.
Chapter 20. The Hour of Triumph. Wilbur, the Arables, and the Zuckermans show up at the grandstand while a friend wants to have some money to go on the Ferris wheel with her friend Harry and Fussy. She leaves while Wilbur leaves his crate and takes the stage. The announcer tells about every miracle that happened on the farm since the summer and says that everyone should feel proud of what has happened. He continues to talk about Wilbur and finishing by giving Mr. Zuckerman $25 and a medal. Chapter 21. Last day. When Wilbur is back in his pen and the families are searching for Fern, he and Charlotte are alone. Charlotte seems very tired, but she tells Wilbur that after the award, Wilbur will not be killed. Wilbur remembers that Charlotte is dying. He realizes that he once thought that Charlotte was cruel and bloodthirsty, and they tell each other how important they have been to one another. Chapter 22. A Warm Wind. All the Charber's babies hatched and floated away in the warm wind, except for 3 of the babies, Joy, Nellie, and Urania. Wilbur sees their children and grandchildren, but they don't take up his heart like Charlotte. The end.
Wait, was that it?
Oh, is that?
Oh, sorry.
Okay, we don't have to start over. We don't have to start over. Wilbur is saying, so, Charlotte, will you come to the fair with me? And Charlotte replies, no.
We gotta start over. Chance, don't try to do that.
We're recording.
Really? Chance?
Really?
Chapter 7.
What is Chapter 7?
Bad news!
Thank you.
Chapter 5. What the heck is Chapter 5?
Oh, sorry.
Wilbur wanted a friend at the
You never
farm.
said the chapters.
Are we on? Chapter 2. Wilbur. Fern loved Wilbur and she loved everything about him. Fern's dad thought it was that. What's Chapter 6?
Oh, summer days.
We got it.
Chapter 5. Charlotte. Wilbur wanted a friend at the farm, but he couldn't find anybody to be friends with. Wilbur searched and searched until one night he found a friend to play with. And Chapter 5. Charlotte. Stop it. Chapter 5. Charlotte.
No! I almost stepped on it.
I got Carter.